Hello and welcome to Live from the Study, the Voltage Sessions. I'm here with my partner in crime, C. William Shabani. He's my partner for both our first book, Baylandia, and if you look over his shoulder, our company, Voltage Comics, thus Voltage Sessions. And we're going to talk a little bit about our book, Baylandia, and about the characters that we created together. And anything else you want to talk about, William?
We can talk about everything, everything involved with what's going on with our upstart and what's coming out next. And but I think we want to talk about some characters first.
I
Baylandia is our first book. It's our first offering, and I couldn't be more excited
Yeah, so
about it, about getting it done and out.
and it's both of our first book. It's awesome. The feedback we've gotten so far has been really humbling, and I'm into it. There's even some people mentioning the Mario Brothers reference, which, as you recall, we came up with like the night before we were going to actually publish the thing. So
I, I,
anyway,
I just remember getting to that, and when he first when the demon guy Vipar, when he's waxing poetic towards Walter. Spoilers, everybody, if you haven't read the book, but he's waxing poetic, but he says that, he basically it's kind of off the cuff, but it's like, you jumped straight to Bowser. You jumped straight to Bowser on your first try, or whatever. And when I was first getting to that part, as I was reading it in your script, I was like, oh man, it's kind of falls kind of flat until that splash page, and you get to see Walter react to what he says.
yeah. We don't want to
It's
spoil that
perfect.
for anybody, but it's funny.
It's perfect. It's
It's
perfect.
good.
Yeah.
So anyway, this is the book,
Woo.
and that's signed. You can't see it, but that's signed. Jeff Augustego Trip
Insane.
over here. C. William Shabani right over here.
Yeah, my swirls and scratches.
And you can buy that on voltagecomics.com. Click the merch button. Um, so I guess we should probably let's first just kind of describe the process that we went through to come up with the book. And right here in this very room, one time I drew a big map on the wall on butcher paper and scared the hell out of you. So why don't we start there?
Yeah, that was a that was a cool day. It was the first time I'd ever come up to your house. Um, but I just remember I just remember thinking, I have no expectations going in. I had only been I'd only been drawing for 2 years at that point. So just the idea of doing a book to me was ludicrous. Uh, and to show up at your place, and you go, here it is, and it was like this epic maxi series of like 12 issues, and all this stuff, and it was very overwhelming.
Well, nobody can ever say that I don't dream big, right? Like
Exactly. I don't think anyone would ever. Sorry, I'm having some
technical difficulties.
issues with one of my stands over here. Um, Decided to come crashing down on me for some reason. No one, anyone who knows you at any point in time in their lives, they could never say that you don't at least think in a big way. So it's one of the coolest things about you. You get really excited,
Yeah.
and that it's infectious. So
And
it's
that's
cool.
actually a fantastic segue, because what I really got excited about was I remember I sent you this thing. I was like, the main guy's Walter Aphrodisiac, private investigator, and I sent you this like terrible drawing that looked like a 3-year-old had drawn, or maybe an 8-year-old, and I sent it to you, and I was like, this is what Walter should look like. And not only did you not laugh in my face, you actually drew something that was completely badass that sort
I
of fit.
remember that.
So what was
Yeah,
it
I remember
about?
that.
So what was it? What were you going for when you first, when you first created the look of what Walter was?
I was just going off of what basically, you know, how you sent me, actually you sent me a few things, a few scratches of you know, some sketches and things like that, in the way that you were thinking. I just kind of took what you were thinking, and the way that we had described the few main characters that we had at that point. Just I took those conversations and just really started thinking about, well, what does this guy look like, and what does he act like, and how does he move, and I mean, like, all of those things. I was just, you think about, and and again, based on like your initial sketches, I just go, okay, well, I think he kind of looks like this, and then I've heard that all artists do this. I don't know if all of them do or not, but they get a, you know, they, a lot of times you get you know, an actor in your head or whatever. And so I started thinking about, well, what does he sound like? Who does he act like? You know, those things. And then, well, what does he look like? So I really started thinking about, if you really look at him, he's an amalgamation of Rob Liefeld's Cable, because he's got that weird receding hairline, widow peak curl thing. That was kind of from Cable. And then Brian Dennehy from First Blood, when he's a sheriff, you know, and he's
Yep.
chasing Rambo out of town or whatever. Just that kind of, like, he's kind of big. He's got kind of this big hunching thing going on,
Like
and
a
that's
barrel
a
chest.
barrel chest. Yeah, I didn't want Walter to be like, I didn't want him to be fat. I want him to be solid, but also with a little, you know, he's got an old guy's paunch, you know, going on.
Yep.
But I wanted him to look um, like he's seasoned, and you know, that he's a seasoned guy, and you know, he's not necessarily, he's not vain about the way he looks, but he doesn't look bad anyway, you know. So he's got a little bit of, he's got a little bit of thickness to him, but it was also from years of operating, as well. So
One of the first things I thought when I saw the first picture of him was that, well, two things really jumped out at me, and we've never even talked about this, so this is fun. But the first one was
yeah,
there was a little bit of an homage to Columbo in the way that his sort of outfit kind of came together. Obviously, a much better put together Columbo, because Columbo's a little sloppy looking, and Walt doesn't look that sloppy. But the other thing was, I just looked at his hands, and I was like, oh my god, hope I never run into a guy like this who wants to hit me, because
yeah,
he looks like he could knock a fool out, right?
yeah. I do try, like bigger characters. I tend to give them like kind of a little exaggerated, like, fists and things like that, hands and whatever. But if you really look closely at, I'll, anytime Walt is expressing, actually anytime any of them are expressing, much like I'm doing right now,
Yep.
this is, it's these hands that you're seeing that I just drawn. Like, even Vivian, not Vivian, but yeah, even Vivian. I think I did something with her. She was doing something, and I was like, I can't quite get it, and so I just took a quick picture of, like, me doing that motion so I could get her hands. But I constantly use reference for hands, and
Yeah.
a little less now, actually. I've been doing it for a few years now, where I've just kind of focused on how people emote with their hands, and I've gotten pretty I've gotten better at it anyway,
Yeah, that's,
for sure.
there's actually, I remember that was the first sort of sequence that I saw, the first couple of panels where the first lady, and if you remember from the first script that we wrote, which we should talk about a little bit, I put together this script, and we ended up flipping the kind of roles of this lady and of this little girl. We'll talk about the little girl next, but there's a scene where the lady just throws this money at Walter, and her hand goes like
Oh yeah,
this,
yeah,
and it's like,
yeah,
that's where I was just like, the first time I saw that, I was like, oh yeah, this is going to be really good, because you can see the way the story. We hadn't even put any word balloons yet, right? And it was just like, you could
yeah,
tell
yeah, yeah.
exactly what was going on based on the way that their bodies were, and the look on Walter's face, and the sort of like moment where that lady contemplates, well, do I give him this money or not? And then she's like, whatever, piss off, and just throws it at him, you know?
Yeah. I've spent a lot of time thinking about, like, I mean, like I said, I've only technically I've only been drawing for a short amount of time, um, but I've been listening to artists talk forever, you know, and I've been reading comic books forever, and I mean, it's a thing, you know, it's you have to, um, if you can look at a comic without the words and still understand what's going on, then the artist is doing his job or her job.
Yeah.
And that's just the way that that's the way that I approach everything that we do. Is what am I drawing, and can you tell what's going on? Is it part of the story? And obviously we want to do uh, images where you don't have to write words, where you don't have to, you know, I mean, you want the dialogue because dialogue's important, but I, I kind of feel like you should never have to, you shouldn't need like narrative boxes or anything for you know, a lot. You shouldn't have to do that. So it's, oh,
Yep.
you know, Walt swings in from the rafters. Well, I would show that. We wouldn't have to say that, right? You know?
Right. And we walk a fine line with that a little bit because there's some portions where Walt's basically narrating what's going on, but that's because we created a noir, right? So like that's sort of a thing
That's
you want to hear him, you want to see him walking and hear like Michael Madsen's voice talking or something, or Tom Selleck's in Magnum PI.
right, right. Well, that's different though, because that actually is Walt's inner monologue. You know,
Yep.
that's him saying, not, you know, that he's actually in those things. He's explaining some things that happen off panel. You know, in between things. So
Yep.
those things, I find those are not so distracting. But in one of those scenes, he's driving. Right, that's one of the scenes where he's driving along, and he's, you know, he's going out to see, you know, out into the suburbs, and he's thinking while he's driving, and that's what he's doing. But if it was, you know, if the narration was, you know, Walt is driving, you know, Walt takes to the streets and drives out to the country or whatever, you know, that's, you know, that's what I'm talking about. You don't necessarily have to do that, because you could follow that I think it's 3 panels on that page
Yep.
of just him just driving along, but, you know,
Yeah.
narrating as he goes.
I definitely think both of us are, as writers, we're minimalists when it comes to dialogue because we want whatever is said to actually mean something at that moment in time. There's not a lot of filler stuff, you know. There's not a lot of like talking for talking's sake. It's more like we let the visuals show what's happening, and we let the voice, the dialogue, enhance what's happening, and also, you know,
Yes.
fill in any little gaps, um, throwing some humor here and there, which actually leads to another really cool part, which is where, as I mentioned earlier, you know, the first script I wrote, there was this lady who was wearing this necklace that clearly has some sort of meaning, and we don't know what that meaning is. And in the story originally, we were going to have that thing, or I was going to have that thing mean something. But I wrote this little bit about this girl who was knocked on the door and had ridden her bike into where Walt's neighborhood, which isn't exactly nice. It's in like a warehouse district, and she knocks on the door, and you saw that and you were like, dude, that girl needs to mean something a lot more than this other lady. And we co-developed this character called Vivian Piedras. And the first, you know, I love the first time you see her because she's just standing there with two nunchucks like a badass, but she probably comes up to Walt's like, you know, the bottom of his chest or something, you know, and she's like, I can take care of myself. What
Yeah.
went into her design? What did you think about when you're like, I'm gonna, this is what I want this girl to look like?
Well, the way I approached it was, you know, I got what you had sent me, and I read through the whole thing, and then I put it away for a couple of hours, and then I got it out again and I read through the whole thing again, and just kind of started jotting down notes. And as I read through it for the third time, I was like, this is, and there's more that should be done with some of these other characters. That's just like immediately I was like, oh, we're kind of missing. I think we're kind of missing some things that could be going on for a bigger picture. Um, so so Vivian was automatically. I was like, well, there's a, you know, this little girl. Okay, you got this little girl who's coming out at night to hunt down this PI for some reason, right? She has a problem. She's trying to take care, trying to get someone who can take care of it. I always imagined Walt's like, classified ad or whatever just said something like, if it's weird, I'll take it or whatever, kind of thing. And that's kind of what she was having her problem was weird for her. So, but when I first read it, I go, well, what is she? That's really what is. I really started going, why is she out like this? Well, she's obviously tougher than a little girl would be, right? And then from there, it really just started spawning into all these other things. Well, she's got to wear this hat. Like my whole thing with design is, and I've heard this before too from other artists, which is, your characters you should be able to tell who's talking by their silhouettes. Like if they're just all blacked out, but you can still tell who they are. So I was like, okay, so all of the main characters in the book, if you take and black them all out into silhouette, you can still tell who they are. And that's the way I was designing all of these characters, especially these main four for this first part. The demons are a different thing, but Vivian really just kind of like came alive to me. I was like, oh man, well, if she's tough enough to be out by herself, well then she's tougher than what the story at that point was kind of making her out to be, because there were a couple of scenes that we completely, like, as I was drawing, I was just like, no, let's go this way with it, and to make her a little bit tougher. So now, she became, instead of riding a bike, it became a skateboard, and instead of like her kind of, she still has the same problems with her dad that she was having. She doesn't like her dad at this point, and but instead of like, kind of being soft about it, or maybe like, she just goes and skates, and she's just, she might, at this point, she may put on a brave face. We don't know. It may just be a brave face, but she's still tougher than originally what was there. So I ended up coming up with like these scenes at the skate park, and that was really fun because I'm an old, I used to skate back before I was old.
That's another thing. Like we both used to do that, and I keep thinking, Vivian definitely listens to like Fugazi or
for sure,
Bad Religion.
My, Minor Threat and the Misfits, man.
Yeah,
that's
she's
and
into
Black Flag, Flag, man.
Black Flag for sure.
Exactly.
She's
so
a
all of
huge
that.
Henry Rollins fan.
Yeah, Henry Rollins. Yeah, exactly. So that's really, and then the hat again. The silhouette thing, but my friend Taylor, he and his wife had a kid, and like while it was in utero, they were calling it Fox. They were just calling it the Fox, and so like when it was born, when Maddox was born, he had a little fox hat. It's like the newborn picture with him with this little fox hat on, and I was like, yeah, that fox hat has got to go in somewhere. And
right. So there's this girl who skates, has nunchucks, wears a freaking badass fox hat, and she's not afraid to go into dark places at night and seek out people that she thinks can help her, because she saw an ad that said, aphrodisiac investigations. We want to hear about the weird crap.
Yeah, exactly.
And
yeah, so that's what I was thinking about as soon as I started reading. And obviously we talked quite a bit before we we talked about it, started changing those things, and then so she's one of my favorite characters. She's the character I get the most comments about when people are like, hey, when's the next thing coming out? What's happening with the little girl? Well, who is she? Blah, blah, blah. That's good, because that's the way I want it to be, because she's got there's a lot of stuff about her that we haven't even
and you
explored.
Stay tuned, people. There are things happening with the little girl.
Coming.
So then the next thing, really, Walt gets this thing from her that's a clue in the case, because we're sleuthing, and he thinks, I kind of love the way that he puts it, because it's sort of like I hear in Walter, like my uncles, my older, my father's brothers, who are not necessarily like as technically adept as people our age are, and certainly not as people Vivian's age, like my daughters or whatever. And they always say this thing all the time about me, right? Like it's always, oh, he does stuff with computers. And
Yeah,
and that's how Walt describes the next person, who actually is, you know, she's a CEO of her own technical consulting company, Slay Girl, and uh,
nice.
Fuchsia Perot. And originally, um, her name was Fuchsia Periwinkle, but we got to the point where you were like, "Hey, I got an idea," and I was like, "Oh, I like that idea." And we can't really describe the entire idea because that's going to be revealed over the next couple of issues. But her name changed, and also we decided to make her a certain ethnicity because we felt like that was important, right? We want to talk about people of all backgrounds, and her name became Fuchsia Perot because she was, you want to describe it, Chet, she is of Creole
Yeah,
descent.
she's Creole descent. At least that's what we think right now.
Yep.
Obviously she kind of looks it. I spent a lot of time in southern Louisiana, uh, uh, not too long ago, in fact. And yeah. So I can hear she. At this point, again, I don't want to reveal too much about her backstory because it's really intense and it's really. Um, uh, I think it's a compelling part of who she is, but that's another thing where I came across this character in your script, and I was like, there's a lot more to this character than Jeff let on, and I was like, oh well, let's start exploring that, and when we talked about that character too, um, she is one of my favorite characters too, just in that. When it's finally revealed who she is and what she's all about, it's gonna be
I
yeah,
can't wait.
it's just gonna be
I can't wait.
a big thing for her, for that character for sure.
Shout out to another creator who I supported on his Kickstarter, Matt Loisel, who does a book called Murder, because he has a character that actually reminds me a little bit of Fuchsia, and we never even spoke to each other when we were both coming up with these things. But she's right over my shoulder right here, and that's Melanated Melanie from the book
Oh
Murder.
yeah,
Um, but let's talk about, so like one of the things that I love about Fuchsia is uh, she doesn't suffer fools, and part of Walter's thing, is that he sets people off by saying things that he doesn't necessarily means, but that he knows is going to put them off balance. And she just like deflects that stuff and goes right at him anyway. And it's so funny. There's a relationship between those two that hints at much more than just a dude who knows a chick. You know what I mean? It's not like a romantic thing, but it's definitely like they know each other and there's skeletons in those closets.
yeah, I agree with that. I love that. um I love the way that Walter's character comes out in what he says to her in that very first meeting when they first meet
Yep.
in Baylandia in the first issue. Um, because I know it's all like it's his. You mentioned Columbo before, but it's his Columbo thing.
Right.
Columbo acted a fool so that people would underestimate him, and Walter does the same thing because automatically, especially now, like nowadays, if I hear someone who makes a racist comment or a homophobic comment or something, you automatically go into the defensive,
Right.
unless you're, one of those people, I guess. But you automatically go, this person, what's going on? They got to be, kind of put you at ill ease, just like you said, and that's what Walter uses it for. Um, yeah. So I love that first exchange. Um, when we get to the point where he's trying to like figure out what's going on with that, you
Yeah.
know, the other CEO guy.
Yep.
Um,
And that's Augustus Repev, who is a demon and happens to share one of my names. Thanks a lot. Um,
none of them. Uh, nobody's commented to me like about. There's a couple of like of Easter eggs in the book too.
yep.
Um, they're in the art, and no one has like like come to me and said, it's like, oh, I saw this thing in the background. I was like, I know, I keep waiting for somebody to see it, see some of the things.
I have heard one comment, just so you know, and it was the guy who's holding, somebody recognized who the guy is that's holding, or who he's
Oh,
based on.
oh, good.
Yeah,
It's just
and
homage. It's homage. That's all it is, right?
it's right, and the truth is, like, I loved the idea that somebody noticed it, and I'm not going to say who it is because you're going to have to see it in the book, guys. But when or who it's based upon, because that is a particular comic book series that is sacrosanct to all good comic people that I know, and for different reasons, right? Like it's always it's a multi-dimensional thing. But I think that's my favorite Easter egg.
Yeah,
So then there's really only one other character, right? That's of the main variety, and he doesn't ever step foot in Baylandia in the first issue of Baylandia, but
that is
he is
true.
nonetheless crazily compelling for a lot of reasons. And his name is Ichabod Cavendish, and he is a professor of the occult at a university in the Midwest. And we see him as Walt's consultant. What did you see? Like, what were you getting at when, or what were the things that inspired you with his look? Because I think actually one of the most compelling things about him is the room he's sitting in.
Oh yeah. Well, he didn't change. That's another thing. Like Walter didn't change, and Ichabod didn't change, because I thought, like, just to all cards on the table. Jeff pitched me two ideas when we first met, and I picked the one that was like spoke to me, right? And so those are the two sketches that you sent to me. One of the two was Walter and Ichabod, and like they didn't change much from the initial go. I thought like those were two of the two characters that you had developed the most. You already had they already had an identity when I was reading through the script. So and when we would discuss them, so I didn't feel like personality wise they didn't need to, like, in my mind they didn't change very much from those sketches to what they look like now. And but Ichabod is just, he is that stuffy. um the funny thing is, like, he's from money, but he's also an academic, so that makes kind of an interesting, like, an interesting backstory fight, I think, that that's there somewhere.
Yeah, his
um
internal conflict is like
yeah,
weird, right?
yeah. Yeah, but so he's from, what you kind of don't see that, and I think maybe I spoiled that a little bit, but he is from money. Cavendish, the family for Baylandia in our universe was a big deal at one point, at least. And but yeah, just having him always be in a room full of books. That's just the way. Quite frankly, if you look behind me, this is the way I feel about, like, art. So I just being in a room full of art, being in a room full of books. That's kind of what I felt like for Ichabod. So as soon as you meet him, when Walt's on the phone with him the first time, he's all reclined, fire going, reading a book while he's talking to Walter. But there's all kinds of cool little things going on in the rooms that he's in. And the rooms change, but they're all library. It's like his house wherever he's living is like one big library. It's just there's books everywhere, and it's a constant thing. So that gives you a sense of his dedication to knowledge, and in particular, we'll find that as we go along. I think in particular, occult, things are dealing with the occult, and obviously we'll find out why he chose that particular path on down the road too. So, but yeah, he didn't change. He didn't change very much. His look kind of came straight from your initial sketches that you showed me.
That could have been drawn by a third grader.
Well,
it looks way better. Let's be real.
Yeah, so he turned skinnier, actually, I think.
Yep.
as I designed him a little bit more, because I kept thinking, well, Walt's got kind of a paunch, kind of a short, stocky thing going on, so I'll make Ichabod, lanky,
Yeah, he's a little lanky guy, and
Yeah,
also they couldn't be any more different as people either. Which the way that they address one another, and Walt's real kind of like calm and straightforward, giving everybody a damn nickname, and Ichabod's like, dude, that's not my name,
yeah.
very
Ichabod,
formal.
I found this like Ichabod doesn't use contractions. That's the best way to describe him.
Yeah, he's one
He
of
doesn't
those
use
guys. Like
he doesn't use contractions when he speaks. He's like
you could hear him
psychopath.
hosting an interview show on NPR or something very easily, right? Like
Exactly,
on
exactly.
culture and the
About
arts.
about demons, maybe.
Yeah.
About his
Demons.
lack of knowledge for some demon stuff.
Demons can be
Oh,
found in the artistic endeavors of, whatever. Well,
exactly. Salvador Dali. Salvador Dali.
so I know
Uh,
I think we should just really quickly wrap this up and kind of talk about
yeah.
some other stuff that we have on the horizon that COVID-19 has sort of
Uh,
kind of set us back, but we will not relent. COVID-19. We are
you
going
will not
to.
win.
These things are coming out anyway. Eventually, as soon as we can find somebody to print them.
Exactly. So yeah. So what do we have coming out? We've got another book by you and another artist,
Yep,
Brian Coelho.
Ryan Coelho.
Um,
Yep. Yeah,
uh,
there's an ad for that in Baylandia, which is pretty
yeah,
awesome.
yeah. Actually, someone commented about that to me. They came up to me at work and said, "Hey, what's this?" And I was like,
Yep,
"Yeah, that's another book. That's another book coming." So that was pretty cool.
yep, and that's the
That one's
Natural Five, which is more of it's a suburban family that comes upon something and things happen, and it's more of a story about what it's like to be a family.
yeah, but it's got a superhero vibe to it, right? That's if you really bringing it down to comic book tropes,
Yep.
it's got a superhero lent to it. Yeah, so that hopefully like it's finished, right? The art
Yep.
is finished, with everything is finished.
It's colored now too. I actually
Colored, we actually did a color.
Lauren
We're gonna do a
Button
color book.
down in the Southland of California did a great job coloring it. And actually, we should probably plug some Instagrams right now, right? What's your Instagram? It's at comic
At Comic Cabal Art is
comic
me,
Cabal Art. Yep, and I'm
and
at Jeffrey August is me, and
and at Voltage Comics.
at Voltage
That's
Comics.
the company's Instagram. Um, who else? Brian. I think Brian's just that Brian, right? Brian.
At Brian Coelho, which is Coelho, and then Lauren is at Thrash Anarchy.
Haha.
And I'll make sure I'm going to use the magic of technology, and those will be printed on the screen.
Oh, cool.
And then
Yeah, magic.
magic, and then we have the other one, which I'm super excited about, which I only know from talking to you and Justin about it. Let's talk about that bad boy.
That book is called The Versanauts. And in Natural Five, there's a teaser trailer for that book. Supposedly, that's going to go into it. But it's kind of this space thing. It happens in space, but it doesn't necessarily. It's not like Star Trek or Star Wars or anything like that. It's about this group of people who have to stop. They're the only people who can do it, right? They actually genetically predetermined to be the people who do this particular job, and it's going to be ridiculous, man. But it's dimensional, it's dimension hopping. There's some time elements. There's just a crazy awesome cabal villain. It's a cabal of villains that that our protagonists have to deal with for the first arc of the book. And I can't wait. I haven't even started drawing it yet, so
Yep.
I've Sorry. I don't know where I was in that, but the
Well, you were describing
Versonauts.
that you were
It's called the
describing the
Versonauts.
villains.
Oh yeah. So I mean, it's just the villains that Justin came up with for our heroes to deal with, and they're not necessarily heroes either. It's like they're kind of a group that's been put together. Again, their
Well, yeah,
genetics play a part into why they're a team.
and I think that's something that you're going to actually see a lot from Voltage Comics in general are heroes who are not just heroes. They're not always right. You know, they're real freaking people.
Yeah. So there's that, and then there are a couple of other things in the background that's we're years away from really like nail it down. But I've shown you some initial things for a superhero. It actually is going to be a superhero book
Yep.
because I love superheroes.
And then
Um,
the thing that really hooked me to Versonauts is a monkey smoking a cigarette, but then also a time traveling Viking. That's another
oh
thing.
yeah. I forgot about Berserker.
The Berserker Immortal. We'll get into that at some point in the future. But we got a lot of fun stuff that we're working on, and we're hoping that as we put it out, that everybody else will be tickled by it as well. Couldn't be happier with way Baylandia has gone as far as reviews from people who've read it. I guess that's about it. That's all. That's the thing that we do this for, right? We tell stories that we
Yeah,
like, and when other people like them, it just makes us feel tickled. That's very humbling to hear people say, "We love Vivian."
yeah. It's pretty cool. It is pretty cool.
Awesome.
So
Well,
thanks everybody for checking it out. It's voltagecomics.com. You can get a copy of the book in the merch section. Get that cool shirt that Jeff's wearing.
you get
You
this
can get
shirt. You get the shirt that he's wearing.
this cool
Voltage
shirt that I'm
Comics,
wearing.
and
There's some
you can get one in
hats.
red too.
Yeah, yeah. It looks like that actually right there,
Like
right?
that right up there. Yes.
Yeah. So,
All right.
but
Thank you
hey,
guys. Thanks guys for
anyone
joining.
who's watching, thanks for watching. Anyone who's watching, obviously there's no free comic book day this in May, which would have been May 2nd. We were supposed to do something with King Kong Comics. Shout out to those guys. But obviously we're not going to be doing that. So maybe we'll do something on our own to something like this to just to
Chat
do a
with
shout
everybody.
out and see
Awesome.
everybody. Yeah.
Well, thanks a lot, guys, and we'll be back soon with talking more about some other cool stories, I'm sure.